Welcome to Projects from the Bottom Drawer. My name is Brian, and you can find us at wearable.com/projects or bottomdrawerprojects.com. Hopefully, this will be the last video on the EICO 150 signal tracer. I have pretty much everything done to it that I wanted to accomplish. All of the capacitors are replaced. The original problem that it came with, that of a shorted speaker, has been fixed with a new speaker. There's some new resistors here and there. I've cleaned up the wiring, but it's working acceptably now. There still is a little bit of noise. It's about 1/4 of what it used to be. Not sure what that is. That may be these carbon comp resistors causing that. So at some point, this may wind up back on the bench, and we'll replace all of these, which is, I think there's only 14 of them, and some of them are similar values. So we should be, well, it should be fairly easy to get those replaced. But the last thing I'd like to do is, is take care of this meter. You really have to crank this thing in order to make this meter deflect. So what I'd like to do is drop the input resistance a little bit to get more signal through. And in the last video, we determined that that would probably be acceptable with a 4.7K or thereabouts resistor. So I have a 4.7K resistor, and I'm going to parallel it with the 10K here. I'm not going to wrap it around these terminals, but instead I'm going to stick it through the little holes here and use those as solder pots. That way, if you want to, or I want to, the next person that gets this, whomever has this in the future, wants to pull that mod out, all they have to do is heat that up and yank it out. There's no need to unwrap and potentially damage other parts. So the iron is hot. Go ahead and get this bent in the proper manner. Let's see. Is that too much? That might be too much. Yeah, I think that is way too much. So let's rebend that back out and take that up to, it can't even be 0.5, 0.4. All right, let's see here. Yeah, that looks like that should be about 0.45 and not 0.6. And boy, did I misestimate that one. So let's put you back in the right bend area. Ah, perfect. So let's see. Go in there. Just a little bit wider than the holes. So it'll stay there. Let's see. Let's get a little bit of flux on those, since those have never had solder on them. Let's see. Do I have anything to catch the flux with? All right, a little bit of flux there. Let's get the iron. A little bit of solder on the tip. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I think my iron might have died. Well, crap. Let's see. Yeah, I must have damaged it the other night. When I changed the tip. Well, crap. Fortunately, I just bought a brand new heater uh, for this very reason. So stand by and I'll go get that heater and replace the iron. So let's see, let's make sure. Yeah, it's still warm, but not very. Crap. So let's get the new tip off because I don't want to waste a tip. Man, is that not going to come off already? There we go. Man, I'll tell you what, those tips bind on there almost immediately. And I remember getting special anti-seize for these way back when, but I don't remember seeing that recently. Let's see, is this still hot? Yeah, oh well. You've been a good one, 30 years. Let's see. Let's put the new tip back on the new heater. Well, really different construction than the old US made one. All right, brand new iron, more or less. So let's put that back in, turn it on, and probably get some smoke the first use. And I guess I should put another one of these heaters into my cart. So just to talk about some of the upcoming things I'd like to have here on the bench. Next up is this interesting battery checker. It's an old Silvertone unit, probably sat on a counter in a store, and it has up to like from 1.5 to 135 volt batteries. So it's definitely in like old A, B, and C batteries. But it doesn't have any leads on it, so I'm not really sure where the positive and negative went. I'm going to put that on the bench and see if I can figure that out, and we'll check that out together. Let's see. And the EICO 249 VTVM that you may have seen on wearboard.com/projects, it really wants to be fixed. So that will show up on the bench at some point. The EICO 950A is nearly done. There's some power supply work and then some just figuring out the general nut jobbery of the previous owner. Let's see, what else do I have in the pile? I have a radio sitting there. I think it's just an A5. It might be a A5 plus one. I don't really know. We'll give that a try. And of course, another signal tracer, a Payco ST20, I believe. I don't know. It's one of the ones they made. They're all about similar, but they just put a bunch of different model numbers on them. So those are all upcoming. And let's see, that does feel like it's getting warm, which always a plus for a soldering iron. Let's see if we got heat. Yes, we do. Awesome. So I'm not terribly unhappy that my old heater died. I mean that thing's been on there since the 90s. So I am a little bit, probably because I'm probably the one that damaged it taking the old tip off. But what do you do? I mean, it's, when would I have bought that? That had to have been the early 90s. Let's see, so that'd be what, 2003, 13? Really? 2003 to 13? Yeah, like 30 some years. It's pretty good for a piece of equipment. I'm not complaining. So back to what we were doing. Let's solder this new resistor into this little cup here. Actually, let me move that up just a bit. I know it doesn't really matter, but let's make it at least look neat. All right, there we go. Now let's do the same thing for the other side. The only reason I'm using flux is because, like I said, those terminals are 50 years old and they've never had solder on them. So let's give it a little bit of reason to make a good connection here. All right. Let's solder the other one. We got a little bit of an indent there, so let me take care of that. There we go. We got a nice fillet on that, a nice little mound. So let's give that a second to cool. Put the lead bender away. All right, let's trim the leads. Let's get them out of there. All right, so let's see, okay, it's in there good. So one last once over. The big filters were replaced. Q4 is right here. It's now insulated and properly mounted and has a nice heat sink to it. Let's see. Again, all the capacitors except for these two ceramic discs. These are new enough that I didn't feel they were necessary to replace. This film, all the transistors on top, these two parts, and of course some wire here and there, and then this resistor we just put in place. So let me get this up and running, and then I will check it. Let's see, tuning. And if this cuts out, then there's probably something playing that I can't allow you to hear. So stand by. So yes, it does work. It's probably a little lower than what I would have wanted, but in reality, I think that's fine. So let me find something else here that isn't a piece of music.
License plates are generally given to law enforcement for undercover work. The DOJ says in its lawsuit that these plates are crucial to officer safety and law enforcement work. But Massachusetts, Washington, Oregon, and Maine stopped issuing these plates to ICE agents. The DOJ claims this is discrimination, and states like only be granted for criminal investigation. Said that is not what it is doing.
Okay, stand by. There we go.
Jacqueline Diaz, NPR News. A federal judge has ordered President Trump's name to be removed from the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., saying the institution can't be named for anyone besides John F. Kennedy unless Congress says so. The judge also halted Trump's planned 2-year closure of the center. In response, Trump said he's backing away from his proposed renovation and returning control.
Okay, so I think that meter deflection that we're seeing there is probably acceptable. Again, it's a little low, but in consideration, we probably should have more headroom than we think we need. So let's get this unplugged. Turn off the little Trexter radio here. Let's see, and disconnect it. All right, let's put you back here for the time being, and you'll come back out later. Okay, so now we need the case, and let's see. And the screws. So let's get this mess cleaned up here. I don't know how all of these cables constantly get strewn across the bench, but hey, whatever. But first I should get a picture of that, just for posterity. Let's see, where is the camera on this one? No, don't. What did you just do? There we go. Let's get a little close up there. Will you focus on that? Probably not. I think that'll do. Pictures for the website, So please do check that out at wearboard.com/projects. The wrap up and final posts for this thing will be posted very, very soon. Actually, they should be posted well in advance of you seeing this video. Now, it did have this cool card in there with it from the original owner, detailing everything they did. I made some notes of my own, and I will write down what I've done to this unit. I'm not going to put it back in the unit, though. I don't want it floating around in there with metal staples and stuff, even though it spent most of its life in there, obviously. And the first date on there is 1975. The last date from the original owner is 8/89. So between 1989 and 2026, who knows what it was doing. Let's see. Let's put you back in there. Hold on, another standoff is sitting over here in the little tray. And these two are for the cord, so you can wrap around. And yeah, the cord, the ground lead has come out of the plastic. I'm not really terribly concerned about that. And that screw is stripped out, but oh well, we've got 3 others. So there we go. Excuse me again. The EICO 150 is working well. The meter is giving us a little bit of deflection. There's nothing more really I can say about it. It was an interesting project, one of the few transistorized devices I've had come across the bench. Normally my stuff is all tube, although I do a little bit of transistor here and there. So thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this series. Please do check out the wrap-up posts on wearboard.com. And as I said, please join me for some of the next things that'll show up on the bench. Thank you for joining me, and please find us at wearboard.com/projects.